we'll just wait for the rest to come in. Then we probably can start. Okay, maybe I'll just start now. So last week you all had your lecture, and I think, as if I know Dr. Kui, you probably it was probably well done, and you also got your tutorial notes right on the portal. Have you all downloaded it? Okay, all right. So basically, okay, let me just briefly go through the concept of this assignment. So this assignment is something called also research proposal, where you are supposed to come up with a problem or an opportunity. That means the problem is either you're solving something within an organization, or you're trying to create a new business, something like your MACE. All right, so there are two parts to it. So you can choose either. So, example, if you have a problem, maybe employee, no, maybe in terms of employee retention, that could be a problem. You find that an organization is losing a lot of people, and you want to understand why. So that is also a research problem. All right. So there are two aspects to it. Either you solve a problem, or you look for an opportunity building a business. So you can go both ways. Okay. Now, after you have defined whether you want to solve a problem or look at opportunity, the first part is actually to do research, to do literature review. That means you have described the problem first in the introduction, then you do a literature review. Now, the literature review, the concept of literature review is to understand what are the so-called elements surrounding the problem. Okay, example, if you have selected, let's say, a problem with talent retention in an organization. Now, in the literature review, you would then describe about some of the factors that may be causing this problem with the talent, right? Talent retention in your company. And you are literally limited to 4 factors, so you can choose any factors. The only thing you need to think about is the factors must be in different subject matters. So, example, if let's say you choose 4 factors all from marketing, the 4 P's, for example, then you can't do that, right? Because it's only for marketing. So the 4 factors could be, let's say, example, information technology. The usage of information technology could be one reason, or leadership could be another reason, or business operations could be another reasons, or even HR management could be another reason. So these are the 4 factors. So that is your assignment 1, right? To look at your literature review. Assignment 2 is to put into place how would you actually do the research. So the assignment does not require to actually do the research, right? You don't have to go out and interview people. It's just putting onto paper what is your plan to collect data, who you're collecting the data from, right? And how would you analyze the data. So I'll go through a bit of detail into this assignment, right? Now, you can also stop me anytime you want if you have any questions, and I can take the questions there. Okay. So the first component is your literature review evidence. So the criteria, of course, is when you start this assignment 1, make sure you have enough information and facts and figures. So I would like to see a lot of, let's say, statistics. Example, if you choose a problem on employee retention, that means there's a problem of people resigning from the organization, or even business growth, right? Your business of the company is you're losing money every year. Now, what are the facts or figures that you could put in place to suggest that the company is losing money? So you should actually do, let's say, example, analysis of their sales, let's say for the last 5 years, to suggest that actually it's losing money. So it's important to put in the facts and figures to support your case, right? This is all in the introduction. Second thing is to talk about frameworks of analysis. That means how would you analyze your problem. So you can do a SWOT analysis, you can do a persistent analysis. This is all under the introduction. Okay, so they just want to see, example, your application of your analysis tools that you are using. Number 3 is actually your critical evaluation, whether it's positive or negative, that doesn't matter, right? And number 4, the criteria is your depth of analysis. So it's important in this assignment that you are not doing something descriptive. When you write something, you actually have to analyze what does it mean. Okay, let's say example, you talk about the influence of the macro environment on the growth of a company, right? So when you talk about this, you actually have to analyze about how, example, changes in culture may affect growth. Why does it affect growth? Maybe because the target market that you're focusing on, because you are very sensitive to culture, and because the culture has changed, that's why there's a reduction in sales. So they want to see your ideas or your analysis behind those problems that you see. Okay. So now this one is quite straightforward, right? I think Dr. Kui has put into place exactly what you must do. So you just have to follow the process. Now I'm going to go through afterwards the cover page. Of course, you are quite familiar with the cover page. You have the cover page in the table of contents. Then, if you are using lists of tables and figures, you put it under the table of contents. So that's your first part. So number one is the introduction. Now this you're looking at 800 words. Okay, your problem can actually be restricted to a company, or it could also be talking about a particular industry. So example, your industry would be call center service retention. That could be a problem in the call center industry. You want to make sure that the problem is also put in the context. That means it must be focused enough. Don't put in example employee retention in the telecommunications industry. That is too big. So you should actually focus on, let's say, a particular area. So it could be employee retention in the telecom industry in Malaysia. Okay, so make sure that your problem is within a particular context. The reason why, if you are not putting into within a particular context, it will suggest that you are trying to build solve a problem. Let's say, example, within the whole world, and that means your sampling must also come from different parts of the world. That will be too big. If you put it within the context of Malaysia and telecommunication industry, your samples are just focused on the telecommunication industry and in Malaysia. Okay, so it's important to ensure that you are putting in context. Now, this is also important when you're doing your final project. Okay, make sure that it's in context. The reason why is because there are two things. You want to make sure that your samples are appropriate to the problem. And second thing is your literature review is also within the context that you are focusing on. All right, so that's the background, 800 words. What you want to do is talk about the scenario that has contributed to the problem. So you can talk about the background of the company if you are focusing on company and what has happened in the company, which will then lead you to the problem. Okay, so example, if you talk about employee retention, it could be suggested that because the company is moving too fast or the industry is affected by technology, the Generation Y or Generation Z or millennials would like to actually progress faster than what the company is offering. So they are moving out to different companies within the industry. So that could be a general problem. And when you describe this problem, you are actually supporting it with facts and figures. So make sure you have a lot of facts and figures, right? Okay, so that is your background. Now, before I move on to the 1.2, are there any questions on this one? Are you clear on the background? Are you okay? Okay, good. So that's 1.1. Now, 1.2 is, what is the purpose of you doing this, right? What is the purpose of you doing this? That means what you're trying to say is the problem big enough for you to actually do a research on? So when you talk about the purpose, you could say that, the telco industry, the problem that you're focusing on is losing a lot of money because of this employee retention problem, right? So that's why you're focusing on studying this. And of course, make sure that you also have data to support this, right? So they want to see that the research that you're focusing on is big enough to actually spend time on it. Now, another thing is when you're doing this RM, right, assignment, you could also carry through this as your final project if you wish to. Only thing is when you do your final project, make sure you're paraphrasing everything in your assignment, so there's no copying. So you can extend this assignment to your final project. Now, your final project will be, I think, between 12,000 to 15,000 words. So it's a matter of writing a bit more detail from your perspective of your assignment. Okay, so you can do that. So when you do this assignment, think about whether you're going to use it for your final project as well, right? And if you do that, the work that you're doing here is not wasted, okay? But just remember that you actually have to paraphrase again. So that's your 1.2 purpose and problem statement. That means you put your problem in a particular statement. That means you're trying to tell the reader that this is the problem I'm solving. Okay, so it's clear. So this one maybe just be about 2 sentences or 3 sentences, right, in the purpose. 1.3 is the significance. Why is it important? That means you are trying to tell them that the results of this or the outcome of this research can impact, example, the performance of the telco industry, example, right, or can contribute to the GDP of Malaysia for the telco industry. So what you're trying to say here is, once you have the outcome of the research, what can I do with the outcome? Right? How will it impact the results? How will it impact, let's say, the industry you're focusing on? So this is also just a very short paragraph that you're putting into place. Most of your writing will probably be under the background, right? Followed by the 1.2 and then 1.3. So this is where you're talking about your introduction, 800 words. All right? Now, after you have done that, when you give an introduction, then you follow through. So you must actually have a transition between 1.0 and 2.0. How you can do that is, example, you could actually have a journal. Say, example, your employee retention in the telco industry could be caused by number of factors. Could be caused by 6 factors, example, right? It could be caused by human resource. It could be caused by technology. It could be caused by operational issues, or it could be caused by marketing. Then you cite a journal. After that, you follow through with your literature review and say that you are only focusing on 4 aspects of your this problem. So there's something that you can do. So make sure that you have a transition sentence between the first paragraph 1.0 to 2.0, so the reader has a backbone or storyline that they are following through. Okay. Now the factor 1, 2, 3, 4, like I said earlier, focus on 4 different subject areas. So because you've gone through a lot of things, you've gone through leadership, you've gone through maybe finance, you've gone through technology a little bit of it, you've gone through maybe human resource. So those are the areas that you can talk about. That means, example, leadership. When you talk about factor 1 is leadership, you could say that sometimes leadership in a company may cause retention problem. Then you describe why does it cause retention problem. This is then supported by all your journals to suggest that leadership is one of the influencing factor in terms of retention. Okay.
Morning, Doctor.
Yes.
Just want to confirm. The problem just one problem,
Sorry?
is it? We're talking just one problem and multiple explanation of the factor. Is it correct?
Sorry, I
Or
just now I lost you there because you broke up. Can you repeat again?
just want to ask about the question for 1.0.
Uh-huh.
We just mentioned one problem for the assignment, is it? And then multiple factor reason for the
Yes,
problem. Okay, just
you're
one.
right. Just one problem, one big problem.
Okay.
It could be
All right.
employee retention, it could be business growth, right? Just one
Okay.
problem.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Doctor.
Then the 4 factors that affects this problem. Okay. After that, so the 4 factors is 2,000 words. So you're looking at 500 words per factor. So that means it's just nice to give you some depth in terms of analysis. So make sure if you look at 500 words, don't try to put in too much so-called references, because if you put too many references, it will just be a collection of references. That means there's no original thought from your perspective. So make sure that you have actually your point of view when you're doing the factor 1, factor 2, 3, and 4. Okay, that means you have actually given, let's say, example of leadership, right? So you talk about leadership and how it affects your retention. Then give your point of view. That's where analysis comes in. And the more analysis you have, then the higher your marks go. So they want to see that. Now this one, the reason why this is a bit more difficult in terms of analysis, because they want to make sure that you are ready to do your final project. Okay, so if you have not been doing a lot of analysis, try to put in more analysis in this part here. Okay. After that, then you put in the conclusion. Conclusion is 200 words. Implication for further research. That means if you have not done example, as part of the analysis, you say that one of the factor is culture. So 3.1, you can say that, further research can be focused on culture, and then talk about how culture may affect it. So it's very short, right? Don't have to talk a bit, don't talk too much of it. 3.2 is then put your factors in the form of a research question, followed by research objectives, and then your research framework. So if let's say you have factor 1 is leadership. So your research question and your title is, let's say, employee retention in the telecommunication industry in Malaysia. Your research question will be, how does leadership influence employee retention in the telecommunication industry in Malaysia? So it's connecting your title with your independent variable. Independent variable is your factor 1, 2, 3, 4. Dependent variable is your research problem. All right. So research questions is very straightforward. It's just a matter of what, how, or why. Those are research questions. Research objectives is just replacing the what or why with to. So based on that example I gave you, it is example. The question was, how does leadership influence, right, your problem? Research objectives is to understand, right, the influence of leadership on employee engagement. Are you clear? Right? So that is quite straightforward. Then your research framework is just a pictorial representation of your research, of your independent variable to your dependent variable. So example, if you have 4 factors, you could put 4 boxes here. One of them is leadership. Then you have an arrow that aligns it to your research problem, which is the employee retention in the telecommunication industry. So it's a very simple diagram in the pictorial form to see the so-called the relationship between the independent variable to your dependent variable. So it could be just 4 boxes on the left side, have arrows to focus on the right side, which is your research dependent variable. All right. Okay.
Hi, Doctor.
Yes, go
Morning,
ahead.
Doctor.
Morning.
Satish here. Doctor, excuse me. You have suggested
Satish, I can't hear you.
okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Breaking up. You're breaking up.
You're breaking up.
Can
you hear me?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Basically, you have suggested that we can bring this assignment to our final year project, correct?
Yeah.
All right. And this final year project, we need to get an approval before we start, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
correct.
From your personal view, do you think it's good for us to bring this this research methodology to our final year project so that it's easier for us to do our final year project? Or do you think we need to start a new one in order for us to do the final year project?
Okay. Some people have actually done that. They thought through about the research problem here, and then they continue with your final project. The only thing difficulty that they had is to so-called paraphrase all the work they've done in their research assignment, right? So example, if you talk about your final project, your literature review is normally 30% of the whole paper. So 30% of between 12,000 to 15,000 words is about what, 4,500 words. So here you're talking about 2,000 words, right, for your literature review. So you have to expand it to maybe another 2,000 words, right? That means you have to go deeper. If you are using your assignment to follow through your final project, you just have to go deeper, and whatever you have talked about in your assignment, you actually have to paraphrase it. So that's one. So it may be easier for you to do that if you feel that is something that you can use. Okay, because some people, they want to use their final project as part of a research that they're doing in their company. Okay. Now, of course, when you talk about this assignment and you're using your own company, make sure you have permission from your management, because sometimes you may be using data from your company as well. Okay. So just remember that. So some people have done it that way. They prefer to do it because they are trying to solve a problem within their company itself.
Basically,
Okay.
you're saying you should have the access to data collections and everything.
Yeah. Two things when you do your final project is make sure the subject you're focusing on, make sure you have enough literature review. So don't go into something too obscure. Like example, I don't know, some really technical stuff that you don't have enough literature review. It's too advanced. Okay. Second thing is make sure that you are able to get samples. Okay. Actually, in your final project, compared to last time, you don't actually have to do the research. You don't actually have to go out and interview people. What they are requiring you to do is to do a lot of secondary research. That means, let's say in your final project, you're doing literature review, right? In your data analysis on number 4 is you're applying to a company.
Okay.
So let's say you have a framework that you've done in your number 2 literature review. You're applying to a real life company. Okay. So when you do your final project, think about all those before you start and select your topic. All right.
Right.
So those are the things. But for this assignment, it's all theoretical in a sense, right? So you can actually describe how you see fit. Okay, because you are not actually doing the work yet. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay.
Utaya, okay, let me see. Rebecca, what do you mean by can we number it?
Because the questions there, I think we need a few questions. So can I put number 1, this question, number 2, 3,
Yeah.
or we need to?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Thanks.
You can put I mean the Roman capital or Roman numbers as well. Okay.
Okay.
Utaya, can you explain those back briefly in terms of business opportunity instead of existing business problem? Business opportunity could be you're starting set up a company in, let's say, consulting, in, let's say, telco. So essentially what you're trying to do in this research is to understand it's actually your MACE. You're trying to build a company and you want to understand what are the factors that were influenced in building a successful consulting company, if you are talking about that as an opportunity. So does that make sense? So example, you found out that, okay, when you do analysis in Malaysia, you found out that not many companies are focusing in a particular product, for example, and you want to do this product in Malaysia. So that's a business opportunity. Then you have to describe in your literature review what are the factors that will influence the success of selling the product in Malaysia. Does that make sense, Utaya?
Yes.
Okay, so you're clear. So you can both use both sides. Okay. Okay. So any questions you have for assignment 1? Of course, the references is your typical reference, your Harvard-based referencing. Any questions that you have in your assignment 1? It's quite straightforward. Just have to so-called fill in the blanks, right?
Doctor,
Yeah.
the problem or opportunity that we have to tackle, is it related to the company or related to the industry?
You can choose whether you want to focus on industry specific or company specific. It's up to you.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Okay, but don't put let's say telco industry without context, because that means you are trying to solve the industry of the whole world. Then it's too big. So you can say Malaysia.
Rational to it.
You cannot say, don't be too narrow also. You cannot say telco industry in Kuala Lumpur. Maybe too narrow. Right? So telco industry in Malaysia. So it's broad enough. So it cannot be too narrow. It cannot be too broad.
Okay,
all right?
understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So if you follow this one, this is your example of your first page, right? Then this is the example of your table of contents. It's very detailed. Dr. Kui always gives you a lot of detail, so it's very easy to follow. Then after that, you have your introduction. Okay, so background, you talk about industry or company analysis. So that's where you go down in detail about your company or industry. Now here, I said earlier, look at a framework to analyze. So you could be using example Porter 5 forces to analyze the industry itself, or you could using some pastel to suggest the influence of the macro environment to the industry, and that's why it's causing this problem, right? And then make sure that you have information to support your analysis. That means practical information, not something made up. So you will have a lot of graphs. If, for example, you talk about, let's say, employee retention in the telco industry, maybe there is a data that's available in some magazine or an article or even a website, right, that you can actually use to actually put into your paper. Okay, and then discuss a bit more about the problems and issues. So that means from the background, you go down to what is the problem that you are facing in this particular industry. All right. Then, so this is an example of your problem statement. So like I said, it's just a sentence. Is to tell the reader what actually are you trying to do a research on in just a statement. So is to, let's say example, to study the feasibility of setting up a business. This is the one that I talk about new business opportunity. Or it could be what are the factors influencing the feasibility of setting up business, right? Or rather, what are the factors influencing the employee retention of telecommunication industries in Malaysia? So those are things that you can focus on in terms of your problem statement. But before that, you actually have to do analysis first. Santia, if you are to discuss about a service, and this could involve multiple organizations, in this case, do we have permission to get from? Okay, so this one is a service, and you're talking about multiple organizations, you're probably talking about industry. So obviously, because you're not doing the sampling, you don't need to get permission. You're just doing a general analysis of the industry itself. Make sure, of course, you're using data that's public knowledge. That means industry analysis of the industry from public domain access. You don't go into one company, talk about their problems, their data, and then bring it out into your assignment because you don't have permission to do that, unless you are written permission. Okay, so if you are doing that, Santya, you're actually talking about industry specific. Then your data is actually from let's say public domains to support that problem in the industry. Does it make sense, Santya? Okay, good. Feasibility study can only go with new businesses. No, it can be done. It can go with new businesses, or it can also, I mean, the concept, the word, of course, is typically related to new businesses. But what you're trying to say is forget about the word, use it from the perspective of trying to understand the background of this problem you are trying to look at. Can it be done by adopting new approaches for the, yes, you can. Example, you are trying to understand, example, whether new marketing, let's say digital marketing approach works for an existing company. So there's also possible to study the feasibility of digital marketing methods to increase sales of a company.
Yep.
All right?
Thank you, Doctor. Yep.
Okay, good. So these are samples that you can look at. Okay. So this is a business performance. The first one is setting up a new company, like I said. Right? Example of a new business. Second one is example of an existing business. So these are some of the topics you can focus on. All right? So that's 1.2. So it's just a sentence. Hang on. Okay. Now 1.3 is of course the significance of research. So here is one, you want to talk about significance from the academic perspective. That means you're saying that once you finish this research, your outcome can actually increase the body of knowledge in a particular academic setting, particular context from the academic perspective, right? The other one is how can it be used in the business setting. That means it can help you, example, develop new strategies for businesses in telcos, example. So we just want to talk about it from two perspectives. How can your research contribute to one, the academic side of it, two, to the business side of it. Are you all clear on these two parts? So also very short, don't have to spend too much time on this. 1.3, the most of your discussion would be centered around your background leading to your problem. So that must be clear. So the way you write the background that leads to the problem is important, because you just want to make sure you articulate the background to the problem statement. So is this clear in terms of significance of research? Any questions on this part here? No problem? No issue, no question? Okay. Okay, then you go into your literature review. Now here, of course, the same thing. Example, you have 4 factors. So let's say, example, one of the factors is marketing. Now, to analyze how marketing can affect, let's say, example, your business growth, right, of a company. So you're suggesting one of the problems that you're trying to fix is that the company is losing money, and you're trying to understand what are the factors that causes the business growth of a company. And you have mentioned that marketing is one factor. When it says here is use relevant theoretical framework for analysis, what kind of framework can you use for marketing? What kind of framework can you use for marketing? Marketing mix, yes, 4P, correct. So you can use all these framework to analyze the marketing perspective of it. Okay? Or if you want to use technology, there's the different frameworks as well. For like, what's the theory of, let me see, what's that? I also can't remember the theory, but basically there are many theories or models for different perspectives. Like even human resource, you have different frameworks. So all those frameworks that you have studied in your particular subject area can be used here. All right? Are you all clear? Okay?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, here it says review will be based on critical evaluation of current companies and industries' current situation and practices leading to the identification of gaps for every factor. That means you're talking about current situation now, not something that occurred maybe 5-10 years ago. Okay, so your data, your analysis will be based on your current situation of the industry or the company. All right, so it's about 500 words per factor. Then the conclusion is like this. So your research question, like I said earlier, okay, let me see whether I have it next page. Yeah, so like I said earlier, your research question is your what, how, or why, right, from what factor and how is influencing the dependent variable. Your research objective is the same for research question, you just change the first word into to, understand? Then your research framework or model is just a diagram to show the relationship between your independent variable to your dependent variable. So this part is quite simple, 200 words. Okay. Every factor must have frameworks. Yes, it would be suggested to have a framework for every factor. But like I said, don't have your factors all within a particular subject matter. Like example, don't have your 4P as 4 factors. Place, promotion, right? Packaging. Don't make sure that the 4 factors are not only in one subject matter. It must be in 4 different subject matters. So you can talk about it from perspective of leadership, operation, HR, technology, management, or business processes, right? So those are all the different factors. That industry analysis, when you are doing this one, a detailed pattern analysis of Porter 5 forces, this will be in your 1.0 background. Do it within 800 words. Now, when you say detailed pattern of Porter's 5 forces, it doesn't mean that you have to go through 6 of the elements in your analysis. You can say focus on these 4 or 3 because these are the 3 most relevant that affect the industry. Okay? And of course, if you want to actually discuss about 6, you can put into a table the 6 and then bring the analysis outside the table. Does that make sense? Thank you. Okay.
Doctor, the research question and objective, it's only for the problem and opportunity, right? I mean, it's not
It's the factors with the problem or opportunity.
factors. So meaning there should be 4.
Yes, should be 4.
Okay.
4 research question, 4 research objectives.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. The 3.4, you all clear in terms of the framework? Are you all clear?
Doctor, for the 3.1, let's say my 4 factors is not doing anything about leadership. So I will need to write in 3.1 means in further research, I need to include 3.1 leadership factor, is it?
Yeah, you can say that, this study you have not included leadership, but you think it's important. Then you just suggest why, then you just put down there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. An example, maybe some people have left out culture because it's too complicated. So you can say, culture is an important factor, but I have not studied here. It could be used for further research.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
All right. So 3.4, okay, everybody? Yes? No? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so that's assignment 1 finish. Simple, right? Your assignment in terms of difficulty between assignment 1 and 2 is assignment 1 is more difficult because you're talking about literature review. Right? Assignment 2 is your research design proposal, is very standard actually. If you studied, I think you went through this research design, right? Basically what you're trying to do is, okay, now that you have your research problem, you have got your 4 factors, right? What you're trying to tell the reader is, how are you attempting to do this research? What are the methods you're going to use to collect data? Who are you collecting the data from? So it's very standard. So obviously you can use 2 different approaches, either quantitative or qualitative or mixed. That means quantitative and qualitative. So obviously when you talk about your approach, you must also justify why it's better to do, as an example, quantitative versus qualitative. That means you have to bring in the advantages or disadvantages of quantitative or qualitative. Then when you go down to sampling, they also want to know who are you targeting to get the answers in terms of your research. So if you talk about, let's say, employee engagement, right? You want to understand the factors that influences employee engagement in, let's say, the telco industry in Malaysia. Who should you be talking to? Anyone? Who should you be talking to? So maybe put your answers in your chat. You should be talking to Rachel, is it? Terence? Oh, okay. Rachel, I guess it's from telco. Okay, good. No, but what is how you define your sample? Who is that? Rachel is doing in which part of Maxis? Sales or business partnership or technology? Okay. So employees could be good. Huh?
Sales and services.
Sales and services. So maybe you are coming as an employee, so they should be talking to you. Example. So there are two parts here. When you talk about this problem, obviously you can focus on employee side, and you can also focus on the management side. Right? So your sample will be from two different types of samples. Right? One is from the employee side, one is from the employer side, which is the HR department. Yeah, correct. Celestina, correct. So here is you want to make sure that your sample is logical to your research problem, Because if not, they will say, how come you are trying to solve this problem, but you're getting data from the wrong people? Because if you get data from the wrong people, garbage in, garbage out, right? So it's not logical. So in your assignment 2, make sure that the research design that you're doing, the research approach, is logical to get the right data for the problem you're trying to solve. So that's what they want to see. Okay? Also, like example, your research method, if let's say you're talking about qualitative and quantitative, now, when you talk about qualitative, really when should you be using qualitative approach? Can anybody tell me? Roughly, when should you be using qualitative approach when you're doing research? Anyone? When there's no quantitative info? No, not really. So, okay, there's two, right? Qualitative, quantitative. No, those are the techniques. What I'm trying to ask is, in your research, when you're doing research, how do you know which method to use? How do you know which method to use? As a rule of thumb. Extra 5 marks. You can give me an answer. Based on the info you needed, okay, what kind of info? Yes, facts and figures is quantitative, but my question is, when I'm solving a problem and I'm deciding on the research approach, how do I know which one to use? Depends on the data that you want to collect. Okay, so Nantini, tell me, in what context?
If it's a conclusive research, doctor.
Conclusive research uses which one? Which one? Quantitative or quantitative. So basically, it's like this, in the rule of thumb. If you're trying to understand, example, behaviors, or you're trying to understand something that's new, then you're probably looking at qualitative. Right? Now, qualitative, the techniques will be interviews, focus groups, or even observation. Now, the advantage of qualitative is you can go deep to understand, right? But the sample size is small. Okay? So that means you can use it to generalize the findings. So it means if you are trying to understand, okay, let's say example, you have a research problem. Every time you go to a shopping mall, every time you see a sale, you see a lot of people going to the shop. Am I right? Am I right not? You see a sale, you see a lot of people going to the shop. Okay. Now you want to start, why? Why is a shop popular when there's a sale? You want to study the why part of it. Then to study the why part of it, maybe you use qualitative. Then it's where you interview the shoppers. Why do you go to the shop? What is it about the discount that attracts you? You understand that? So after you understand that, this is using qualitative is to understand behaviors. Then as a rule of thumb, you use qualitative. But if you understand measurements, like example, how many, how much, then you use quantitative. Okay? Like example, you want to study how much discount do I give to attract people, then it's quantitative. Does that make sense to you guys? Right? So it's a context of study that you're trying to do. So don't get too complicated. Basically, it is, you can also use mixed method. That means when you do mixed method, because your study is so new, you do qualitative first, then you validate the results with a quantitative approach. So quantitative is, your sample size is much bigger, right? The results you get from a quantitative, you can generalize it to the whole population. If you're doing qualitative, it's too small, you cannot generalize the results. Just because 12 people says so, does not mean it applies to the whole population. But from quantitative perspective, if let's say 200 people say so, 200 to 800 people say so, depending on the population size, then you can say the whole population also has the same thinking. All right, so when you talk about your assignment 2, make sure you are actually validating the research approach that you're using. Okay, be careful about mixing the methods, right? Example, if you say I want to do qualitative approach, qualitative, then you say I want to do survey, something wrong with it, isn't it? Because qualitative is either interviews, focus group, or observation. Okay, so they want to see that you understand the research design approach. If you mix the methods, that means you're not really clear about the research approach. All right. Any questions before I proceed? So same thing. You have your cover page. Okay, your research design proposal, you select the right one, define it. Okay, select the one. Either you do qualitative, quantitative, define it. What is it? Discuss about advantages and disadvantages, and justify why you're using this for your research. So that's what they want to see. These 4 elements to it. All right. Select one, define that approach, discuss the advantages or disadvantages that approach over the other one, and justify it. So your advantage and disadvantage could be either because it's cheaper, or it could be more timely, you can get more information more timely, or basically because your sample does not allow you to do, let's say, example, qualitative. You can only do it quantitative. So those are some of the justification you can put in. Is it okay? How come today you're also quiet? As if you're going on the first date, so quiet. I thought I know you all guys already, what? Huh?
Time is too deep, doctor.
Too deep, Okay.
Everyone say confusing.
Confusing.
Too ambiguous, doctor.
Actually,
Too ambiguous.
we just finished our SM assignment a couple of
Oh.
days. Still in the
So you're
Still feeling very stoned.
So you're still locked into that SM mode,
trauma.
Yes.
Trauma. Never mind. After this, you're home free already. So must think from that perspective, isn't it? Okay, before I proceed, any questions? Because you all say yes, there's no question. So I'm also worried when you don't have question. Maybe you don't have question now.
We are more
Later
worried.
you got question. How many words for this? Which part, Sue? Sue? There's one question. How many words for this? Oh, 2,000 words. The factor 1 to 4 is 2,000 words. Yeah, academic and practical significance. So basically, in terms of the academic, what you're trying to say is whatever study you're doing adds to body of knowledge. That means other people, let's say example, you're trying to understand employee engagement in the telco industry. From the academic perspective, people with your research outcome, people, the new, let's say MBA graduates or coming in, or bachelors will be able to learn more new things because of your study. So it's a very simple explanation. That means you're saying that your research can add to the body of knowledge from the academic perspective. It enhances understanding of theories or frameworks. That's from the academic perspective. When you look at the practical significance, your results or your outcome will allow companies to develop better strategies to prevent, let's say, employee disengagement. So those are the two different areas. Does that make sense, June? So you don't have to talk too much about it. It's just very simple explanation only. All right. Okay. So can we use a company and their strategies used as benchmark to solve a practical issue? You mean you're saying that you want to talk about a company and then discuss their strategies? Is that Nantini? Is that what you're saying? But if their strategy is working, then they won't have a problem, isn't it? So what, maybe you can talk about it from a perspective, what is it about their strategy that is causing a problem? So that is the problem statement. Does that make sense, Nantini? Okay. Okay, so research proposal number 2 is actually just taking your end of your assignment 1 to put in assignment 2. So of course you the 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 is something that you can copy, right? Because it's the same thing. But your purpose and problem statement, you can just paraphrase it so that you don't get this plagiarism problem. Use the same thing, but just maybe paraphrase a bit. Okay, it's only 200 words. During the lecture, Dr. Kui suggested you use both qualitative and quantitative research philosophy. Yes. No, I'm not suggesting you use one. I'm saying that you can use both methods. Now, the reason why Dr. Kui suggested that you use both, because it's theoretic part, is just to make sure that you understand the both context of it, which I also agree, right? It's a mixed method, right? The thing is about this assignment is because you don't actually have to do it, so you don't have to worry about doing it. You just have to worry about the theory part of it. Okay? But depending on your problem statement, sometimes your problem statement, it is more logical to use only one approach. Positivism. Okay? Then you put it down. Okay, so there's no hard and fast rules. Right? There's no hard and fast rules. Okay? As long as your explanation is logical, then you shouldn't have a problem. All right? Okay? So assignment 2 is like this. Just the first part, and then, okay, then you go into, this one is your 2,800 words is your research design. Right? So your research methods, you are looking at whether you're going to use mixed method, positivism or interpretism. Then your sampling methods. Sampling methods is property sampling or non-property sampling. You can talk about it. Now, of course, you also have to justify the methods you are using, sampling methods. Right? Must be appropriate to the approach you're using. So normally, a lot of people will use non-property sampling. It's much easier. Then you talk about data collection. How do you collect the data? That means you go through survey or you go through telephone interviews, depending on the research method you use in 2.1. Right? So if you are using quantitative, your data collection will be surveys, email surveys, telephone interviews, right? Questionnaire. If you're using qualitative, then you may be using interviews, focus groups, or observation. You choose. Then you justify it. 2.4 is after you collected the data, how would you analyze the data? So you can use quantitative, you can use frequency tables. You can say, I'm going to use SPSS, or I'm going to use Excel to come up with the frequency tables. Or you can use the Pearson correlation, all this multivariate analysis. Or qualitative, you can be doing content analysis. You went through all this analysis form, isn't it? Roughly. Did you go through that last week? Yes, no? Yes, okay. So you can just put down those and make sure you justify it. Now, then the ethical issues. What are the ethical issues that you can think of? What are some of the ethical issues you can think of? Data privacy, correct? Right? Data privacy, how I use the data, maybe whether I have permission to use the data. So those are data ethical issues. Okay, you can just put down a few. So those are very standard as well. Then after that, your Gantt chart. Now Gantt chart here, what they are asking for is your Gantt chart for your final project. So they want to see how you intend to do your final project. So it's probably 3 months only. Your Gantt chart will show a 3-month Gantt chart. Okay, then appendix 1, okay. If you are just doing one approach, which is quantitative, then you probably only have a appendix 1 questionnaire. You won't have appendix 2. Appendix 2 is discussion guide. That means what kind of open-ended questions you will have when you are doing a focus group discussion or interview discussion. If you have mixed method, then you will have appendix 1 and 2. If you have only one method, you either have appendix 1 or appendix 2. Would that mean that all our, your Gantt chart will roughly look the same? It depends on only the period basically. So your Gantt chart could be, first one you're doing pre-literature review, very quick one. Then you're coming up with a problem statement. Then you do, maybe second one is literature review. After that, you do your questionnaire development. Then you do your sampling, looking for sampling. Then you do your questions. Then you do your data analysis. So these are the tasks that you will do in your Gantt chart. For assignment 2, section 1, so basically it's only this one that you are really paraphrasing. It's not really paraphrasing at all because it's only 200 words, right? So I don't think you have a lot of plagiarism issue because it's only 200 words. Will I be marking the paper? I'm not sure. So they'll be allocated different markers. But this is pretty standard in terms of the research proposal. So they also follow a defined way of marking. Any questions? Let me see. Okay, so, yep. So that is the assignment 1 and 2. I want to open up for questions that you may have.
Doctor, I have a question. What would make a student fail this assignment?
What will, okay. If your logic between your assignment 2 and assignment doesn't make sense, that means you are saying you want to do this research, but you collected data or the samples that you are getting is not logical, then of course you may fail because it's not logical, right? How you collect the data to support your research, it doesn't make sense. That could be one. Plagiarism, of course, another one, right? That's universal. Your depth of analysis, if you are just at this level, MBA level, you should be having a lot of analysis. But if your assignment 1 in terms of your literature review is just a descriptive writing, then you are borderline, right? Because then you are not at the level of level 7, which is MBA. You understand? Does that make sense?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. But don't worry, I don't think it's very hard to fail, okay? Unless you don't do your work, you submit last minute, or you copy.
You have to put effort to fail.
Yeah, have to put effort to fail. Exactly.
So, doctor, I want to ask you. So when we do this, do we make a conclusion in the research, or it can remain open?
It has to be open. We haven't done the research yet. In your final project, you will do a conclusion. Final project has 5 chapters. This one is considered 3 chapters, right? The introduction, your literature review, and your research design. In your final project, you are extending that to your data analysis, and so your conclusion at the end. Does that make sense? Right, Jacob?
Yes, doc.
Okay, good. So what I see last time is, like I said, that people feel it's because their logic or the use of research design in your assignment 2 does not seem to correspond to your assignment 1, right? The research design doesn't make sense, or even the way you use your instruments, your data collection, doesn't make sense with your research methods. So it just suggests that you are not sure about how to do a research. And because this is a research paper, of course, that will lead to failure. But like I said earlier, your research approach is all very standard. If you use it qualitative, there are only so many methods you can use. There's only so many approaches you can do for sampling, right? So it's quite logical. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions? No questions at all. Huh? No questions, ah?
Can you explain a bit more about the questionnaire in the discussion?
Okay. The questionnaire, yeah, sorry about that. Your questionnaire is actually, let's say example, you're doing a survey. So they want to see a sample of the kind of questions you're going to ask your samples. Now, obviously, your questionnaire must also be aligned to your 4 factors, right? Example, you're talking about marketing, and then in your literature review, you have actually hypothesized how marketing can influence, let's just say, business growth. And you're saying that marketing channels, the way you use the different channels, could be one of the factor. So obviously, when you say channels, they want to see that question in your questionnaire, isn't it? When you're asking your samples, right? Am I right? Right. So the questionnaire that you're going to ask your samples must also be aligned to your 4 factors. So I would suggest that your questionnaire, sometimes for each factor, you would have between 3 to 5 questions for each factor. So your total questionnaire may be between 12 to 20 questions. And if you talk about questionnaire, you don't only put yes, no answers. Sometimes you may have multiple choice questions. Sometimes you may have a Likert scale. Do you know the Likert scale? Let's say strong to weak, 1 to 5 Likert scale. So example, you can ask, okay, how strong do you think marketing channels will influence the marketing of a company or business growth of a company? Very strong or very weak? 1 to 5. You can also ask that. Or you can have it on a which are the channels that you use that you think are important for business growth. Then you can put Facebook, LinkedIn, billboards, so you can have multiple choice questions. Right? So make sure when you come up with this questionnaire, have a mix of questions. Not only yes or no answers, but maybe multiple choice and Likert scales. Did you go through the question design with Dr. Kui?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Good. This is the typical. Normally, you don't have questions because you have not done it yet. You probably have more questions when you start doing it. Am I right?
Yeah, question in the chat box.
Sorry. Do you have a sample? Ayo. Let me see. Okay, let me go through one first. Will you be marking our paper and the minimum reference required for this both assignments? Marking paper depends on university to allocate. Minimum references, if you say 2,000 words, most of your references will be in your assignment 1 under literature review. So 2,000 words, it could be maybe 10 to 15 references, right? If you go into assignment 2, your only references will be example in the use of validating the approach you're using, quantitative or qualitative. So that's your references for that. Why you choose this one over the other one. Then of course you will say you will come up with a justification and then you support it with a reference. So that's probably your references in assignment 2. Samples. I have to try to get it. Let me see. Okay. How qualitative and quantitative fits into the appendix 1 and 2. Okay. So appendix 1 is questions, right, Daniel? So if you talk about questions, your question, this will be more appropriate to your quantitative survey. So in your research method, if you have talked about that your approach you're using is quantitative, they want a sample of your questionnaire that you may be sending out to your samples. So they want to see how your questions will look like. If let's say you're using qualitative, then they want to see a sample of your discussion questions for your qualitative, which is either used in the discussion group, a focus group, used in interviews. Normally these two, participation, you're just observing. Okay. If you use both methods, then you should have appendix 1 questions and appendix 2 discussion questions. Daniel, is it okay? Okay. Regarding sampling methods, we just brief which method we choose, and yes, you just brief, explain what is it, look at the advantage and disadvantage of the method, and justify it. Remember they say create, justify, explain, right? And justify. So that's what you follow. Wendy, okay?
Doctor,
Yeah. Go ahead.
Want to ask about if we are doing a problem within the industry, can we not specifically mention any company?
Yeah. In the industry, you'll be talking about the industry as a whole.
Okay, so we.
So yeah.
Okay.
So you won't be talking about any particular company.
All right. Thank you.
All right. But in the I would think in your final project you'll be applying to a particular company.
Okay. So never mind. It's okay. All right. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Any advice on choosing the research topics or something that the research topic could be an area that you are very familiar with or something that will interest you. So example, if you are in technology or telco or pharmaceutical, you can choose an assignment based on that, right? Whether you are in sales or whether you are in finance, you can choose something that you are familiar with. Then it's easier for you to articulate the problem. Okay. Is it correct? Is it okay? Let's see. Nantini, is it okay? Research topic? Okay, Chen Wai Lun, okay, while Dr. Simon 1 and 2 also having background purpose and problem statement can use same as no. Assignment 2 is only the purpose only, you know, problem statement only. So you don't have a background one. Because background you already done in assignment 1. So you're not copying the background, you're just copying the problem statement only, just one statement. And then the research objectives and research question. Okay? Wai Lun? Okay. Just to clarify for assignment 2 under part 1 on the background, do we need to paraphrase based on assignment? Okay, so I think Celestina, you got the thing, assignment 2, there's no ready background. It's just a problem statement, which is just 2 sentences only. Okay. Elaborate a bit on content analysis. Is just for the literature review. Content analysis is a technique that you use to analyze qualitative research. So imagine qualitative research, you have a lot of data because you're interviewing people. You're doing focus group. So normally when you're interviewing people or focus group, they'll be talking, isn't it? Talking. You have to transcribe all their talking. So if you are talking to them for 45 minutes, you probably have maybe a transcription of maybe 4 or 5 pages. So imagine you're doing this for 10 people. So you have 50 pages of what people are saying. Content analysis is what you need to do is go through these 50 pages and try to understand what are the common themes that these 10 people are talking about. That's content analysis. It's something like your literature review, you know. Does that make sense?
Yes, Doctor. Yes.
Okay.
Content analysis, because to my understanding, what I've done on content analysis before, for example, I want to review a speech by a certain personalities. So I analyze the
you're breaking
content.
Up.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can.
Okay. For example, to my understanding, when I do content analysis, it's, for example, I'm analyzing a speech by a personality. So I analyze the various speeches presented by the personality in using the content analysis method. Is that correct?
Yes, you can. Yeah, that's one way, basically. So because qualitative, you're talking to maybe between 12 to 20 people. And you're asking the same question to these 12 to 20 people, right? Now, these 12 to 20 people, when they give you the answers, they may give you answers from different perspective. So you're right, what you're trying to do is to analyze exactly what are the patterns that are common to these 12 to 20 people regarding that question. So in the context of what you're trying to say is one person, a personality, have 100 speeches. When you do content analysis, you are trying to analyze the 100 speeches and understand what is the key takeaways from all these 100 speeches. So you're right in that perspective, okay? So what you need to do, what you're just saying is you don't need to do the content analysis, you're just talking about how you analyze it only. So if you go to a lot of this theory, if you do a search on analysis, content analysis in the Google, you probably see a lot of methods. You can have grounded theory, you can have all sorts of methods you can actually talk about it. Okay, is it okay?
Okay, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Doctor, in our
So in the assignment 1, do we touch on the competitors analysis in the introduction? You may, if you think that competitor is one of the reasons why your company is not doing well. You can talk about it. That could also be also the reason why the problem is happening. Okay, so you can talk about that as well if you want to. Padma, you saw my pastel analysis. Okay. Which is the best topic? Consumer satisfaction factors of Toyota, employee satisfaction determination in Google, business success determination of Nokia. So let me ask you back. Which one you think you have more journals or background information. Toyota, Google, or Nokia. So it's really, I think Nokia would have probably a lot. I think all these three would probably have a lot. Customer satisfaction factors of Toyota, maybe you may have not so much. Okay, whatever it is, example, customer satisfaction factors of Toyota, what you're trying to do is when you do a research or literature review, you're trying to find journals that are related to the car industry. So you can do a search, factors influencing the consumer satisfaction of automobiles. Then you probably see a lot of literature. From there, you can actually find out what are the 4 factors that they commonly talk about. So it's a very simple way of trying to get your 4 factors. Right? Business success determination. You can do the same thing. Right? Example, you can say factors influencing the success of telecommunication, or let's see what Nokia is one phone companies. Then from this literature review, when you read one, you probably see a lot of factors. You can actually go detail into those factors. So that's one easy method of finding the 4 factors. So Baldev, okay or not? Okay, let me see. Next one is when defining context in the beginning for the title so that we can be specific on the problem and solution. Oh no, it does not have to be within Malaysia. It can be anywhere, but just make sure that it's a contextual lah. The reason why I say sometimes within Malaysia, if you're actually doing a proper research next time, right? Let's say, example, you tend to go to PhD. If you are doing in Malaysia, of course, when you try to get samples, it's easier, isn't it? Because it's within the vicinity of your location. Or maybe if you want to do, let's say, Europe or London, and you have samples in London, then you can, by all means, you can do London as well. So you want to put the context so that it makes sense for you to get the samples, but it doesn't mean that you have only do in Malaysia. Okay, it can be anywhere. Just remember, whichever you're doing, you will be looking at literature review for the area. So make sure that you have enough references that you can gather. Because you don't want to go and think about a title, then somebody come out to literature review and they find out, hey, not enough references that I can use. So do a quick search first. A topic that you're interested in a particular location, do a quick search and see whether you can get a lot of journals for that particular area and the particular topic before you start your assignment proper or your final project. Okay? If you don't mind, can you brief again from assignment 1 as I'm still clear? Okay. Yep. Okay, I'll do that. What would be your favorite industry for this? What would be my favorite industry? Okay, I'll come back to you, Rina. Sai, what would be my favorite industry for this assignment? I think retail industry is quite popular. Telco industry, all those FMCG industry will be quite popular. But if you want to take a challenge, you can go into robotics or AI or drone technology. Okay, so those are something that new. If you want to learn, you can use this assignment as a way to learn. Yeah, telco. Rachel, very popular, Rachel. You got a discount or not? For Maxis. Okay, Roland, assignment task questionnaire asks us to get the okay from lecturer on research topics within 3 weeks. You asked Dr. Kui, asked us to agree with you last week. Yeah, if you have any questions on your research topic or you're not sure, just send me an email. Okay, so that's fine, huh, Roland? Oh, thank you, Rachel. Do you mean the topic is about coffee industry in Malaysia? The journal referencing this be if it's coffee industry in Malaysia, and you're talking about literature review, obviously there'll be a few areas of journals. One is talking about coffee industry in general. Then, of course, you also have to talk about coffee industry in Malaysia because your problem statement is in Malaysia, right? If it's too general, then they will ask you how does it apply to Malaysia, isn't it? So you probably have to have some data or facts about coffee industry in Malaysia. right? Because remember, I said that in your literature review or your background, you must have some facts to support the problem. So if you don't have enough information, how can you support this problem, isn't it? But coffee industry is quite popular. I think there's a lot of data, probably in Malaysia as well. So you can do that. Okay. Rachel will give you discount now. Okay, let me see. What have I missed? I missed Rina. Okay, I'll go back to assignment 1. Okay, what I'll do is, let me see, any more questions? Number of references, I think, like I said earlier, if you're talking about 2,000 words, I think you're looking at maybe 12 to 15 would be enough of 2,000 words, right? Solid referencing. The depth of referencing will actually give you an indication of your analysis. Okay?
Doctor.
Yes.
In regards to referencing, let's say we are doing a study in Malaysia. Do we include as well?
Sorry,
sorry.
You broke up.
Okay, so let's say we are doing a study for Malaysian market.
Yeah.
Do we put as well a global reference for it?
No. Okay, you know that they talk about Malaysia, you're talking about maybe a funnel approach, right? You're talking about global references first. Then you should focus down on Malaysia itself.
That's what I mean. Okay.
Yeah. You can do a bit.
Okay.
Then go down to Malaysia. Because your problem is very specific to Malaysia. So you talk more about Malaysia. Because that problem may not exist globally.
Okay.
Thank you. Would shipping industry company in Malaysia be a good topic? Yes, I think shipping, well, Malaysia is one of the biggest shipping in Malaysia because of Straits of Malacca. So you probably see a lot of journals there as well. If you are choosing topics that relate to organization, leadership, or culture, should we choose to do qualitative or quantitative? If you are testing a theory, let's say, example, you've done a lot of research on leadership and culture, and a lot of people have suggested that leadership, transformational leadership or transactional leadership influences the performance of a company, and you want to validate whether it's true in the context of Malaysia, you can do quantitative. But if, let's say, you go through a research and you found out, hey, there's not enough literature to suggest that leadership has an influencing factor on performance in Malaysia, you can do qualitative because you're trying to find out and come up with a so-called a new theory. So you can do qualitative. Does that make sense? Raja Sugari? Is it? Yeah.
Yes, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay, good. Business performance for a retail environment like pharmaceutical case study of... Yes, you can do a case study if you want to. That means you talk specifically of Guardian, but then you must get data about Guardian. Okay, if there's not enough information about Guardian, then you probably cannot do analysis of Guardian. Sue, okay? Yeah, let's say you talk about coffee industry. When we come to 4 factors, we need to analysis as that. But okay, when you talk about coffee industry, you talk about 4 factors, you talk about HR. Now, some of the problems in HR may be very unique to coffee, you know. That's why there's a problem. Because maybe coffee industry requires a lot of ground staff, example. So the uniqueness of HR may be very unique to coffee industry. So when you talk about your literature review, in that factor, you should go down to that detail about uniqueness of HR in the coffee industry. Or what your analysis would be, because you have different literature. For example, you have a coffee industry, you have a general coffee industry, you have coffee industry in Malaysia, you have HR. Then based on your analysis, you're combining the HR general, coffee industry, Malaysia, and analyze what is it about HR in coffee industry in Malaysia. Does that make sense? So you know the Venn diagram, you have three different areas. One is HR, one is coffee industry, right? One is Malaysia. So what you're analyzing is the coffee industry of HR in Malaysia. That is part of your literature review. Does that make sense, Utaya?
Sorry, doctor, can repeat this? Like, let's say,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
When you do a literature review, you have 500 words. Now, obviously, when you talk to, let's say you're trying to tell a reader about how HR can influence coffee industry in Malaysia. So you start, in general, the paragraph is, you talk about HR in general, isn't it? Then you have a bit of detail about coffee industry in Malaysia, right? Then you talk about specifically, coffee industry, and then talk about Malaysia. So you have three different body of knowledge here. After that, in the paragraph, when you go deeper, you are supposed to connect what is the HR in coffee industry in Malaysia. What's so specific about the problem of HR in coffee industry in Malaysia? That's where your analysis comes in. So if you are able to do that well, connect the dots between these three areas, then your marks go up higher. Does that make sense? So don't just go and talk about HR in general. Don't talk about coffee industry in general. In your literature review, you must combine these three and say what is it about coffee industry, HR, and coffee industry in Malaysia, because that's where your problem lies. Okay. 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 What I'll do now. What we can do is we take a break, 15 minutes. I will try to get some samples and show you. All right. So we come back at now it's 10:30. Meanwhile, during the break, you may have a lot of questions. So, and I will go through, Rina, I'll go through the assignment one again. So during the samples, we can go through again. So you come back at about 10:45. All right. I'll see you at 10:45. And I'm sure all of you will come back because you want to see samples, isn't it? Okay. All right. So I'll see you at 10:45. Let me see. There's the shop sharing. Okay, is everyone back? All right, let me just now disclaimer. I noted that sometimes when you have samples to follow, in general the quality of the whole cohort goes up. So as you know, the bell's curve. So in general, the quality of the whole goes up. What would have been a credit before a sample would now maybe be a pass only, because in general the whole class goes up, right? Because of bell curves, isn't it? So I just want to give you this disclaimer before I show you the sample, right? Because I think that in general the quality of the whole group will go up, because once you show a sample. Okay, so disclaimer, so that means you have to work harder. Okay. All right. Let me show you the first one. I'm not going to show you the distinction level. I want to show you something that is in between, maybe low credit, so that you can see areas of improvement, right? Of course, you have to do some work also, right? So I cannot show you anything, isn't it? So let me just show you assignment 1. Yeah. Okay, you can see my screen, right? Okay, this is of course the normal. This one is the factors that affects customer loyalty, right, of a particular company. So you can do this as well, but the company in Malaysia. So there's context there, okay. Then of course this is your standard format table of contents. Then you have list of tables, abbreviation, your figures, right, and tables, which is in your tutorial already. Introduction. Of course, you talk about a bit of introduction about, so you set a scene for the problem. So you just want to have a bit of introduction. Then you go into your background. Okay, so these are just giving an idea of where your problem can come in. So it's very global, very broad perspective. And then it goes down to the background about Dunkin' Donut itself. Okay. So here, like I said earlier, if you think that you want to do a company and you have journals or information from maybe the public, you can use, then you find to do the company. So you might want to do a public listed company as well, because they have a lot of information. So it's up to you. Now the things about of course then what they did was they used a tool analysis to analyze the problem. So what you probably can do is improvement is that these are things. You probably can show a graph, so it's easier to articulate your problem rather than having the reader read it. Okay, so these are things you can put a graph, pictorial, to support your analysis. So they use a SWOT. They use competitive analysis. I think Sue, you asked me that, right? Yeah. Then from there, you went into the problem statement. See, the problem statement just like that, only. Okay. The purpose and problem statement. Actually, problem statement should be very short, okay. But this is supporting the problem statement. Okay. Then significant research. There are two areas. One is academic view. You see here. They're saying that they can actually support and help understand some facts or limitation from the perspective of academic. The business view is actually to increase customer loyalty and retention for Dunkin' Donuts. So that's the business view and that's the academic view. All right, so far? Okay. Now then you go into literature review. So if you look at how he started, because you're talking about customer, let's see, customer loyalty, he started the literature with a bit of broad statement about perceived value. How perceived value can lead to loyalty. Now here, sometimes it's important to understand this type of things when you're starting a sentence. with the literature, you don't put this one, you don't put the what you call it, brackets. Okay, that's why I said if you are using Word, sometimes the Word will force you to put bracket, but you should take it out after that. You understand now? These are some of the so-called academic perspective for writing. All right. Then afterwards, when you talk about many researchers, actually you just put.
Can you repeat about the bracket, Doctor?
Yeah, when you start a sentence with a citation, you don't put a bracket. You start, if you want to put a bracket, it's normally at the end of a sentence. Does that make sense?
Can we use like according to and then bracket?
No, according to also no bracket, because you're talking about the author. Normally the bracket comes in at the end of the sentence if you are using it as a citation. Adam, is it clear? Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but these are you don't have to get too worried about this because this one, if you're doing PhD or doctorate level, they are very particular about all these things. Okay. So so basically it goes down. Then talk about perceived value. All right, so that means they give you a perspective of perceived value just to give you an idea about customer loyalty. Then this is the one. Okay, so they give you a model. And then this is a theory, basically from theory of perceived value. Then they went into, from here, they went into where? The marketing mix. So they have different attributes that talks about, for customer loyalty, what they're saying is one is perceived value. Then they use the theory to talk about perceived value. Second one is marketing mix. That means how marketing mix influences the customer loyalty for donut, right? So they talk about marketing mix. So you see, they have all the 4 P's here. So they talk about using 4 P's. Okay, marketing mix. Then they go down in detail. So this is about 500 words, all here. So they go down a bit more detail and use a lot of this citation to help you. So these are important. Okay, then after that, they go into, third one is human capital. So they have two, one is perceived value, one is marketing mix, third one is human capital management. Then they talk about human capital and they talk about this framework. They use a framework to talk about it. Then they go down in detail, right? Talk about L&D, motivation, digital technology, okay? Yeah, so there are 4 aspects. One is perceived value, one is marketing, one is HR, and one is technology. These are the 4 factors. So far, okay or not? Any questions so far?
Is this assignment being brought? Sorry.
Okay, so Yi, Kumar, and Ryan Nuts. Then the 2016 is in bracket. Okay, 2016, the date is in bracket.
Doctor,
No, it's not uploaded, cannot be uploaded.
Doctor, will the customer perceive value and marketing mix from marketing?
Sorry, well, perceived value and marketing mix, is it the same?
Yes, same like from the title of marketing. It's a part of marketing.
Yeah, but it's marketing is considered about the approach of marketing. Perceived value is the customer's perspective. So you're talking about customer behavior. So it's under consumer behavior.
Also,
so they do different.
Consider another factor.
Yes. Consumer behavior is another factor. Marketing is another factor.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after that, once they talk about all this, then they went and summarized it. Further research, you see, can do further research. Then they do research question. You see all this? How would perceived value, how will the impact marketing mix, human capital and technology affect it, customer loyalty. So these are the independent variable, these are the dependent variable. Then the objective is just to change it to 2 only, to study. It's the same thing, but you just change the first sentence here to start with 2. Then this is your framework. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is your dependent variable. Then finish. And then bottom is your references. Okay, so this one is a pretty good paper, but of course you can still improve on it to get a distinction, right? But that's how you should write it, basically. Is this assignment been brought? I wouldn't know because I don't go through the final year project. May have, not have. Okay, any questions? This is assignment 1. Are you clear now? Rina, are you clear? Because you asked me about assignment 1, right? Yep, okay, good. So are you clear? So now your benchmark is now higher. Whoever's marking a paper, your benchmark is higher now because you have seen the example already. Alright, any questions before I proceed to assignment 2? Cannot, benchmark cannot be same. It's an exchange of transactions. I give you something, you must give me something back.
Doctor, hi, morning. Terence here.
Yes.
Doctor, in the assignment paper, right, basically it says the topic forming the basis of the research proposal needs to be established in the first 3 weeks dating from the start of the teaching module. And then it says there that permission to continue will be dependent upon the lecturer approval of that topic. So do we need to get your approval for whatever research topics that we are proposing?
Actually, not need. As long as you're clear about the topic. If you are not clear, then you send me an email. But basically, it is to make sure that you are solving a problem or trying to start a business, basically. And then you put it within context. But if you're not clear, you just send me an email and I'll just give you some feedback.
Okay, all right.
All right, Terence? All right. Okay, any other questions? No, huh? So your benchmark has increased now, all right? Okay. Let me go to the next one. This is assignment 1. Let me go to the next one.
Doctor, are you going to give the assignment 2, which is the lead from this assignment 1, so that then we can correlate? Yeah. Thank you, Doctor.
I also was a student before. So I know what you're going to ask.
Because a bit challenging to actually for me to correlate the research objective research questions into the assignment 2. Because we have 4 questions and 4 factors, right? So is it in question 2 also we have to do all the 4?
No, it's just it's just copying only. You see, I show you this assignment 2, right?
Okay.
You just copy back only. Of course, you see, you see, just copy back only.
Oh, okay.
Right, this assignment 2, So you probably have to paraphrase it because if you are actually the problem statement is just one statement, But if you want to talk a bit more to just give you a bit of context, then you paraphrase from your assignment 1 because it's the same thing. You see, all this is just copy only. 200 words only, okay? Are you clear? Okay, then you go down to this one, research methodologies. This is where you talk about your philosophies. I think this one they went about theory. The only problem about this paper is very theoretical. So they talk about this theory, research philosophies, right? Which is good. I mean, it talks about a good philosopher. It lays the groundwork. But it's important to, once you lay the groundwork about different type of philosophies, then you want to so-called understand which philosophy you're using in your research and why are you using that philosophy. You see, example, they just talk about the different philosophy, right? the positivism social science attains a lower level of prediction. So then you have to apply it to your research, you know. So what does that mean to your research, right? Which are you using? So that's one important thing. Are you clear or not? So what this paper has done is just talk about the different perspective in general. So in order to improve it further, you talk about it in general, then you must talk about which one are you using in your research, in your particular research, and why. All right? Are you clear? Okay. Then the same thing. So from here, philosophy, they go into research approach. So it's like a funnel. Huh? They go down, research approach. That's why you must make sure that your philosophy and your approach are all aligned. And then your instrument, your data collection, all aligned. So here they talk about research, deductive approach. I think you all learn all this, right? Inductive approach. You see, all this, deductive approach, less students' involvement and struggle to understand. This one, okay, then that's all. But which one are you applying to your research? You have to just continue with that. So that's important. That part is missing. Then it goes down to research type. Now, because you are also limited in terms of word count, make sure you don't talk too much about the theoretical part, then you cannot apply to your research, isn't it? Because it's all theory. You have to make sure that you are talking about which method you're using for your particular research. Because that's more important, right? They want to understand whether you understand the application of the research methods to your research, not only about theoretical aspects. So if you talk too much, then you don't have enough words to talk about your application side of it. Okay, so research strategy, so case study, qualitative interviews, blah, blah, blah. You see, they talk about customer may get irritated, it will take long time for interviews. Then these are a description of research choices. So they talk about the different choices. See here? This is important. In this study, mixed research methods will be deployed. Then you have to explain why. Of course, you are taking some of the explanation from the top to put into context in your research. Are you clear? Did I lose you there? Are you clear? Huh? Let me stop here and ask and have any questions. You have any questions? Daniel, okay? The rest okay? Focus group are considered, yes. Focus group is under qualitative. It's your data collection method. So how you collect data is either interviews or focus groups or observation. So all good, I can continue? Okay. Then they'll design sampling methods. You talk about sampling methods. So you have probability sampling, non-probability sampling. So this is where you talk about sampling. Yeah, you give all the definition, the background of it. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So they talk about different types of sampling, snowball sampling, judgmental sampling. Now, you see, they talk about all this snowball sampling, judgmental sampling, right? All this convenience sampling, but they didn't really talk about which sampling method are you using for your research. So it's good to have all this, but make sure that you have a paragraph to say which one are you using for your particular research and justify it from that perspective, because they want to see whether you understand how to apply the research methods or techniques to your research. Then you have sampling size. Okay, these are the general table that you have. If your population size is so much, then these are the kind of samples you have, depending on the confidence level you want. All right. Then after that, okay, then you do a calculation, sample size 200. So they are saying that I want to have a sample size of 200. Then they talk about where they're going to get sample size. I think they didn't talk about, let me see. Okay, here one thing is missing is who are you focusing on. So if I'm talking about customer loyalty in Dunkin' Donuts, who should I be talking to? I should be talking to the customers, right? Of Dunkin' Donut. Now, then you have to define what is the definition of customers in Dunkin' Donut to understand loyalty. It cannot be just customers, isn't it? It must be customers who have visited Dunkin' Donuts 3 times a week. That is considered a loyal customer. Does that make sense to you? Huh? Does that make sense to you? So you must define the definition of a loyal customer. It's not just every customer, isn't it? Because you understand the attributes affecting a loyal customer. So what is a loyal customer to Dunkin' Donut? Loyal customer can be defined as once a week I come to Dunkin' Donut, or is it 3 times a week, or is it every day? It cannot be every customer that comes in, isn't it? So same thing, in your assignment, when you define your sample, describe the characteristics of your sample in a very short sentence. Are you all clear? Yes or no? Okay, good. Then after that, data collection tools, yeah. This is how I collect the data. So this is, see, I use a survey question, I use secondary data and literature. So if I use survey question, in your appendix A, I should have the sample of the question there. If I use in-depth interviews in appendix B, I should have the sample of the discussion. So this is a Likert scale. This is how they want to do analysis. So they are just telling you how I want to form the questions. Then the survey questions, appendix 1, see? Appendix 1 and appendix 2. Then analysis. So they use SPSS, right, and Excel. So here they miss out, how do I analyze the qualitative survey, qualitative interviews, right? Because they did in-depth interviews, so they did not talk about how they intend to analyze the qualitative side of it. They just talk about quantitative side. Then they have ethical issues, informed consent, respect for intellectual property, reliability and validity. So these are the normal standard ethical issues that you may have. Then the Gantt chart is like this, right? So selection, this is your actually it's 3 months. Then what are you going to do? And then your references, and then your appendix. See? These are your research questions and discussion guide. Okay, so that's assignment 2. Let me stop sharing and take any questions you may have. Questions?
Dr. Terence here. You mentioned just now there was no analysis on the qualitative, right?
Yeah.
What do you propose, or what framework or methods do you propose that we use for qualitative analyzing?
Actually, there are many. What you do is just to do a search on content analysis. They have a lot of methods like grounded theory. I also can remember there's a lot of methods you can use that. Basically, they just want to talk about how you intend to analyze the in-depth interviews, because you notice, right? They just talk about SPSS and Excel, but they did an interview session, but they didn't forget they didn't talk about analysis of the interview session. So that's what I mean by making sure that your paper is logical. If you talk about this, where's the analysis part, right? So you just want to cover the angles, all the bases.
Okay, so basically whatever we show up there, we just have to have the explanation or the analysis down there to prove that it is done, right? Okay.
Yeah, correct. And then like I said earlier, you have a lot of theory part about the different methods and stuff, but they didn't talk so much about application of this theory to the research. So that was missing. So you have to put that in as well. Which method you're using and why?
Doctor, last one. So basically, if we do all this, then our chances of getting a distinction is higher, right?
Yeah, of course. But it must be logical, lah. Just don't put for the sake of putting in, lah. Because it's a story, isn't it? It must make sense from beginning to end.
Okay, thanks, Doctor.
I can foresee that the standards of all you will go up already now, so it'll be harder to get distinction. Correct? The bell curve. Okay, any other questions? Should be quite clear now, isn't it?
Yeah, Doc. One more question.
Yes, Jacob.
So, when we go on to do the master project, the major project, if we were to take this, we expand from here, means then we need to look out for the plagiarism. We need to paraphrase so much while doing the same project, same topic that I my own topic, right? So would it make sense for us to expand it on the same topic or choose a different topic?
Some people, they like to expand on the topic. They go deeper into it because they already have a purpose to do it. Some people, they just pick a topic, any topic to do for your assignment. Then they decided, hey, this topic is very boring. So when they do the final project, they change the topic. So that's what they did, lah. But some people who continue for that, they actually have a reason why they are going deeper into it. They want to apply to their own company, or they want to understand a bit more about the subject area. That's why they chose to go deeper into it. So they don't replicate don't have to do twice, because they've done it once in terms of the literature review. They just go into the master project and go a bit deeper only.
Okay, Doctor, but what is the trend? Of course, if I'm really involved in a project, then of course I want to hold on to the topic. That makes sense. But what is in your observation, what is the normal trend, overall trend in terms of like ratios that comes in, or it is still 50-50?
Okay, the problem I can't give you the answer because I don't see the final project. Last time when I was doing that, I can tell you lah, but now I can't because Dr. Koo is the one handling the final project. But I would think it's about 50-50 lah. The last time, based on last time, the data. Okay. How many questions would be best for the qualitative analysis? Yeah, I think 5 broad questions will be enough, right? Because these are all discussion questions. So what happens is these discussion questions, as they answer the question, you probably have more questions to ask them. So 5 broad questions will be good enough. But make sure it's specific to the literature review, to the topics that you have, to the factors you're talking about. Right? Don't make sure it's out of topic.
Good morning, Doctor.
Okay, any other questions?
Good morning, Doctor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a sample of...
Very soft,
Or do you have a
sample?
sample? Do you have a sample of a new business startup? Let's say the assignment would like to do new business startup.
The sample will be similar to your MSc.
Okay.
We talk about your background, about why you think this business startup. The only change will probably be your background only. Right? Because you want to talk about why you want to set up this business. Why you think there is an opportunity in this area. So that's the background. But the others, the factors, the research method will all still be the same.
Okay, so if let's say Malaysia market is too small for that particular industry, so at the end we can include a bit of international market as well, right? Or we can straight away target, let's say, global market.
You can, but then you must make sure you have enough data to suggest that there's a opportunity in the global market. It's not too big, isn't it? Cannot be too big. Maybe you want to focus or you want to bring a product to Indonesia. An existing product to Indonesia. So you are trying to do a research on what are the factors that will make this product popular in Indonesia. So that's your research.
Okay, so
Then you make sure you get enough information about Indonesia and about how this product can be used in Indonesia.
or the few regions that we have data lah.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't be too broad lah. Don't be talk about Asian market lah. Not so broad. Talk about specific country.
Okay. Thank you, doctor.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions? I hope it's clear. If the topic I choose, the industry have product to serve project and home appliances, do I? Better focus on one. Either it's a project or home appliance application because it may be different usage, right? So focus on one particular area, either home or project. Because if not, you may run out of words to go deeper. Because you're talking too much, too generally. Okay. Any other questions? No questions. Anyway, you know my email. If you have any questions, you can always email me. Okay, if no questions, you sure no questions, huh? Which means I choose one sector first. You can if you want to, yeah. You choose one sector first, then per project you write other sectors. Yes, you can do that. Can we bring in good practice from overseas? Yes, you can say that whether that practice will work in Malaysia. There's also a research that you want to do. So let's say, example, they have a particular business process that they have in a particular overseas, and you want to see whether this business process is applicable to Malaysia. You can do that as a research. Okay. Any final questions? This is the last one. No, you won't see me again, huh? But do keep in touch, lah. Do keep in touch. You have my email. You can reach out to me for anything. Even after your MBA, you can also reach out to me. Yeah, go to Facebook. Yes, they will guide you for your final project. So I think don't worry, Dr. Kui will go through with you. I think you have 3 meetings with him as you do your project. So the first one is the introduction. When you finish the introduction, you go through with him. Then after you, I think, finishes your second and third one, then you go through again. Then 4th and 5th, you go through again. So you have 3 meetings. Yeah, photo session, good idea. Maybe all of you can switch on your camera. Let me just take a photo. So I got to go through 3 screens because there's so many of you. Yes, please. Now that the economy is open, if you feel you want to meet up for coffee, please let me know. So what I'm going to do is, do you all know my mobile number? It's very dangerous to give you my mobile number. Okay, I'll give you my mobile number. If you feel that you want to WhatsApp me for your questions, also can. But hope it's not midnight lah. Okay, 3793278. Okay, let's take a photo. The first screen, I got to go through 3 screens. So the first screen, cheese. 1, 2, 3. Wait, one more. Screen number 2. 1, 2, 3. And next one, last one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Yeah, I will share the photo. How to share the photo? I'll give it to Mohan. Mohan. Mohan, you there? Okay, I'll pass it to Mohan to share the photo. Yes, Rachel, you text me. And special discount, right, for Maxis. Actually, I'm a loyal customer of Maxis. My number has been since the 1990s, early 90s. Very loyal.
Definitely, I will do arrangement. Don't worry, I'll text you.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, guys. So keep in touch, please. If some of you want to do your PhD, please continue your PhD now after you finish your MBA, because don't stop, then you lose the momentum. All right. So some of you may want to do it. So please go ahead and do it. Okay. So I will see you whenever I see you. So maybe if you all are free, just call me up. We can go for a coffee or whatever.
Doctor, do you support any university on DBA?
I don't. I used to. Then I used to supervise DBA, but then I don't do it anymore because it's too time consuming. Right now, I'm helping with Asia Pacific University, but for their startup community, their bachelor program. So basically, that's it. But if you feel that you are doing your doctorate and you feel you need to have some independent view, you can always reach out to me. I can also give you whatever I can when you're doing your doctorate. Now, there are some doctorate programs that are good. The University of Malaya one, I think maybe Westminster will be coming up with the doctorate as well. So keep your eyes peeled. Mohan, correct? Where's Mohan?
Yes.
Ah.
In the pipeline, Chief. In the pipeline.
So you stick to WIC. I just teach in WIC only. I don't teach anywhere else. Because I love the community.
Ask for discount.
That one you ask one.
Then I'll let you know lah. Okay.
Okay. So please keep in touch, All right. I hope to see you outside. Of course, with social distancing. Let's have coffee together. All right. Because I like to know people.
You are ending the session, Dr. Tom?
Sir?
You're going to end the session early?
Yeah, I mean, unless you have questions.
And the students going to take any photo session?
Just now we just took only. Okay, take again.
Okay. No,
take again.
Okay.
You want to take again or what?
No, Chief. No worries.
No, I will send you the photos, then you pass it to the group.
Okay.
Oh, one thing, the marker. Huh?
The WAC management group.
Okay. Malacca, yeah. Malacca, they say going to open, but then now they're not opening yet. I love Malacca. But I don't know what happened to Jonker Street. I hope the shops there are still there. Okay, guys. Yep, so thank you very much. I had a very good I enjoyed my session with you guys. So I hope to see you there. Anyway, if you I think I shared my YouTube channel before and my Facebook, so just connect with me or my LinkedIn. LinkedIn will be better. Okay? Then I'll see you around. All right? So thank you very much, guys. Enjoy myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Doctor, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much.